Think about the kind of people that God uses. He doesn't use normally. He doesn't use big name, mega popular people. Sometimes he uses a Nebuchadnezzar, an Ahasuerus. He uses Pharaoh for certain things. But you know what? He's using an insignificant, unknown widow woman named Ruth to do absolutely something marvelous to prepare and to picture the gospel. So when you come to Ruth chapter 4, as we have been learning, Naomi and Ruth are in need of a redeemer. They need somebody in the family of Elimelech, that they married into, to step in and cover their debts. They need somebody to marry Ruth and give an heir for the land and the property that Elimelech had owned. And whoever would do it would have to do it at a great cost to themselves, because there's debt and there's a name change. That child, as we're going to learn, would inherit potentially a lot of land. So I'll talk about that in just a moment. Now, Ruth has discovered that Boaz is in love with her. What an amazing discovery when you find out somebody loves you. It's terrible to watch somebody be in love with somebody and the love is not returned. But Ruth notices that Boaz is infatuated with her. He's just mesmerized by her, and she's in love with him. So it works out nice that they're both in sync. And she has discovered that Boaz is the man. He's the right guy who can step in and can redeem her mother-in-law, all the debt, and fix her situation. Now, the Old Testament word redeemer was an advocate. It means advocate. It means an avenger. Somebody would step in and protect and deliver you. If you remember in Luke chapter 18, you have a woman there who was a widow woman who kept coming to the judge saying, "Avenge me of my adversary. I need you to protect me. Nobody else will." That she didn't have any family who would step in and defend her, take care of debts or whatever. So she asked the judge to find some way to protect her, and fulfill the job of a protector, an avenger. Evidently, she had an enemy, an adversary who was trying to destroy her. And that word comes through to us as Savior. That's what Jesus is. He's our advocate. He's somebody who steps in and takes care of our debts and fixes everything that sin has ruined. So I want to say that we learned last week that Naomi and Ruth are doing one thing. They're only doing one thing. They're waiting. That's all they can do. They're being forced to trust God. And I don't know if you've ever been forced just to wait on God, but it is a common thing for a Christian. Say you're looking for a wife and you're just waiting on God. You're trying 160 different companies trying to get a job, and you're waiting for them to get back to you, and you're waiting on God. Waiting is one of those awful things about Christianity that we usually hate. It's not a pleasant thing to be waiting. So, but in the Bible, we are told hundreds of times to wait on the Lord. Let me quote for you Psalm 25:5. "Lead me in thy truth and teach me, for thou art my God for thou art the God of my salvation. On thee do I wait all the day." Now, that's an admission that all day long, I have to wait on you. I can't act without your help. It goes on in Psalm 27:14. It's a command, wait on the Lord. Be of good courage, and he shall strengthen thine heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. Waiting is something we're commanded to do, but it's something we should get used to doing, because God doesn't work in our timeline. But you can trust that God is at work. Does that make sense? All right, so I'm waiting on God to do something. I'm going to have to sometimes step back and go, I wish I could speed it up, but I can trust that God is already at work at his time. So let's go to Ruth chapter 4, and we'll pick up in verse 1. And I want to show you, first of all, that Boaz is now, he's working, and Ruth can't help him. Ruth can do nothing. Ruth's like a patient on the theater operating table. She's just going to have to let the doctor operate. And verse 1 says this. Look at just the beginning of it. It says, Then went Boaz up to the gate and sat him down there. Just stop there for a second. He's going to sit down at a city gate. This is a small town, small village called Bethlehem that he's at. And it's a city gate. So there were small walls. there's a line demarking where the city limits were. In those days, there were real physical walls. And the gate, they closed at night to protect the people inside, and they would open up during the day, and that's how foot traffic usually, would come in out of the city. And he sits down right there at that gate. It's a very public place. It's a very simple place. But people gathered there to do business. Especially older men. Maybe they were retired. We don't know, but there would be what they called elders of the city. And they had a very important job. The older you get, the more we should be relying on the wisdom of an older person. So the elders, the older, more mature men, maybe who weren't out working in the field, maybe didn't have an office job, they would come to the city gate and they would wait there until they were needed, because there was always transactions going on and people needed witnesses. People needed judges and juries to help them make decisions. And this is where Boaz has come today. Now, what is kind of unique is this was the simplicity of life back then. They didn't have fancy courts. You didn't have solicitors. You didn't have complex legal arguments. What you had were one guy selling property to the market, another person buying it, and the village that knew everybody was able to judge, is this a just and a right transaction? Are there any shenanigans going on? Are there any bribes going on? And do we approve of this? And so on and so forth. And it was all on the up and up. It was very public. Now, verse 1, let's keep going. It says, then went Boaz up to the gate, and he sat him down there. And behold, the kinsman of whom Boaz spake came by. I'm going to call him the nearer kinsman. Remember, there are two family members who are related to Elimelech, which was Naomi's husband. So you have the kinsman, or maybe he's an uncle. Maybe Boaz was an uncle of Elimelech. But this guy's a nearer kinsman, which means he's probably a brother of Elimelech. So we don't know, but we know that he's closer to him. I'm going to call him the nearer kinsman. And behold, the kinsman of whom Boaz spake came by. Now, I'm going to say this. I think Boaz knew he would be coming by. And he says down, he waits till this other man comes by, and he says, right on time. And look what he says. Unto whom he said, ho, as if to say, hey there, such a one. Now, that's a good phrase. That's basically saying, cool guy. This is a great guy, okay? So he's honoring this other man. Ho, such a one, turn aside, come over here, sit down here. And he turned aside and he sat down. So the nearer kinsman knows that there's been goings on about the property of Elimelech, owned by Naomi, and her debt and stuff like this. And so he's aware of this, but all of a sudden he goes, oh, I guess we've got to deal with this. So he sits down. Verse 3. And he said to the kinsman, so he lays out the facts of the case. Oh, did I say verse 2? Sorry. And he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, sit ye down here, and they sat down. So normally when we, when we need somebody to witness something, usually you need just 2 people to witness. If you go to the registry office, they'll always ask you for at least 2 people to be there to witness a marriage ceremony. When you've got to affirm, that of your character, you want at least 2 character witnesses. Well, he gets 10. Okay, so this is Boaz. Boaz knows that what they're about to deal with, he needs everybody on board. He needs everybody seeing what they're agreeing to, because he's going to have to bring somebody into the equation that's going to cause maybe some ruffled feathers. And he wants everybody on the up and up. He doesn't want to do this hush-hush with just a few people. So he gets 10 of the elder men to sit down and to interact with him and to watch and to judge whether they're doing things right. Verse 3, and he goes over the facts of this case he's about to present. There in Ruth chapter 4, verse 3. And he, Boaz, continues, and said unto the kinsman, Naomi, that is come again out of the country of Moab, selleth a parcel of land which was our brother Elimelech's. And I thought to advertise thee. I thought to present it to thee, saying, buy it before the inhabitants. Buy it publicly in front of everybody, and before the elders of my people. If thou wilt redeem it, redeem it. If you want to buy it and take over the debt, do it. But if thou wilt not redeem it, then tell me, that I may know, for there is none to redeem it besides thee, and I am after thee. So it's just us two. And right off the bat, what does the nearer kinsman say? I will redeem it. I mean, he didn't have to think about it. Here's an opportunity. Obviously, he's got some money, and he knows it's his job to step in and to keep the land from being sold to another tribe or to somebody who's not in the family. And he just instantly says, I will buy it. I will redeem it. No problem at all. Case closed, right? But there's some background here I want you to see that is the weight of this statement, okay? Number one, Naomi's in debt, and evidently this kinsman, this second kinsman, is willing to take care of it. But Naomi's going to come with the land. Did you know that? So first of all, this kinsman is not just buying land. Oh, okay, this is the widow of Elimelech. That's the land belongs to Elimelech. I'm going to have to take care of Naomi. And he agrees. He's honorable. He says, I've got to take care of Elimelech's wife. And so far, so good. He's willing to take care of everything so far. He's not going to abandon her to poverty. I'm going to say this. I want you to understand. Naomi is facing financial ruin. She has no earner. She's been relying, up until recently, she's been relying on Ruth to get food as a poor woman and bring it home to the both of them. She has no way to survive. The debt is going to ruin her. And so here's this near kinsman saying, no problem. I'll do my duty. I'll redeem even Naomi from her financial ruin, and we'll continue the family line. I want you to go, if you'll hold here in Ruth, go back to the left, find Leviticus chapter 25. Leviticus chapter 25. And there's several times that God gives this commandment about taking care of a family, taking care of the debts of family. Have you ever known maybe somebody in your family was always getting into trouble and somebody always having to what is it called, where you bail them out? I couldn't think of the word. They bail them out and stuff, and you just go, oh, poor so-and-so. They're having to bail out their son again, or bail out their husband again. All right, well, that goes way back where it was drilled into our grandparents and our great-grandparents and generations that you do that because they're family. Now, Leviticus chapter 25, verse 25 says this, and if thy brother be waxen poor, that's an old word, just says he becomes poorer, he becomes very poor. If he becomes poor and hath sold away some of his possession, maybe he's actually had some land and he sold it away to somebody else that he shouldn't have, and if any of his kin come to redeem it, then shall he redeem that which his brother sold. God is saying, hey, if somebody is a gambler, let's just use an example, and he's gotten himself in debt that he had to sell a house or whatever so he could pay off his debts, another family member needs to come in and buy the house back. That was God's recommendation. Go to Numbers chapter 36. Next book after Leviticus comes Numbers chapter 36. A lot of people only think of the law of Moses as very dry and very useless. Let me tell you, all the good laws, I'll be very emphatic, all the good laws, the good, balanced, helpful laws in any country, especially in the Western world, any good law that we have has its roots in a biblical law. If you have a good law in the books in Ireland, it's because somebody got a truth from the Bible and enshrined it in our law system. And people may look at it and go, oh, we need abortion. Oh, we need same-sex marriage. They're throwing away what is thousands of years of legal precedence that was built upon the Bible. Okay? So here we come. So when you're reading the law of Moses, you're reading the foundation for all good government. Okay? Now, not all of it, because there's some ceremonial laws that don't belong in, in the forecourts and in the door. But look at chapter, what did I tell you, 36, 8, and 9. And every daughter that possesseth inheritance in any tribe of the children of Israel shall be wife unto one of the family of the tribe of her father, that the children of Israel may enjoy every man the inheritance of his fathers. Simple words. You're married in a tribe, your children need to keep the property in that family. Verse 9, sorry. Neither shall the inheritance remove from one tribe to another tribe. Name me a tribe in Israel. There were 12 of them, actually 13 of them. Name me a tribe in Israel. Say again? Naphtali. Yes, I couldn't catch your, yes, Naphtali. Somebody else? Say again? What'd you say? Issachar, yes. What'd you say, Bill? Dan? Benjamin? Judah? Asher? Okay, so these are, what'd you say? Zebulun. All of these are counties, all right? But they were tribes. In Israel, there were 13 of them. There was one of them that didn't own any property. Who were they? The Levites. Okay, so, but they are a tribe. So, but the property wasn't supposed to be sold to another tribe and go from tribe to tribe. It'd be, no. Whatever property belongs in that tribe and then passed on from down that family line. So, I just want you to see God wanted land and family protected. Now, let's go back to Ruth chapter 4. And he asks this nearer kinsman if he wants to buy up Elimelech's property and take over the debt. So verse 4 again, we'll read it. And he says, and I thought to advertise thee, make it public to thee, and ask you, saying, buy it before the inhabitants and before the elders of my people. If thou will redeem it, redeem it. Do you see that word will? What is Boaz allowing for? Free will. If you want the property, act on it. If you don't, I will. Do you see that? He says, but if thou wilt not, if you don't want to, then tell me that I may know, for there is none to redeem it beside thee, and I am after thee. And he said, I will redeem it. So this decision that the nearer kinsman needs to do has to be free will. He cannot be forced. Now, duty is something we should do, but did you know what? You still have the free will not to do it, don't you? What do we call somebody who doesn't do their duty? We call them a rebel. We call them AWOL. But they still are expressing their free will. They're not robots. Now, we read there in verse 4, he says, I will redeem it. So he accepts it. There's no haggling, no debate. He agrees to step in, buy the land, and take care of the debts and take care of Naomi. What a guy. I mean, you'd want this guy in your family, really. Didn't go, oh, how much is it? Oh, I don't know. Can you give me some time? No, he just right there goes, I'll take it. Now, also, let me step back and let me remind you, until our government and until the governments of the Western world because our government, let's use my preposition right, because our governments are so controlling and so powerful, before they became so powerful, normal transactions were done very simply. They used to do what's called bartering. You didn't even have to use cash. You could just exchange products. But because governments feel like everybody needs somebody controlling them, now you can't buy or sell without two-step verification. You have to go down to the bank, you have to sign paperwork through the wazoo. Everything is so complex. And my only point is this is how transactions were dealt with, publicly and verbally. And it was very simple. I said last week that when a Roman, or a Greek, when a Greek proposed to a girl, he would throw an apple at her and say, do you accept? And if she grabbed it, she was saying yes. And that was it. No need for an engagement ring. No need, it was just, here's an apple. And it was just a sign of, do you accept? Now, if she let it drop, it was, no, I don't want you. All right, so that's how it worked. But it was so simple. Don't you miss some of that? We're losing a lot of stuff today. But the near kinsman accepts it. Now, what has Boaz not introduced yet? An itty-bitty, teensy-weensy little fine print problem. named Ruth. So verse 5. So he's already accepted. Be careful how quickly you accept something, okay? Watch this. Then said Boaz, what day thou buyest the field of the hand of Naomi, thou must buy it also of Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of the dead, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance. Now here's the fine print. Ruth the Moabitess comes with the deal. You'll have to marry Ruth, so to speak, okay? You'll have to take responsibility and take care not only of Naomi, but you're going to have to take care of Naomi's extended family as well. Ruth is here. You'll have to marry Ruth for her dead husband's sake and for her sake. She's part of the family. Now, wait a minute. Let me just say this. I don't think any of those Jewish people up until this point, accepted Ruth as a Jewess. They accepted her as Ruth the Moabite woman. You understand what I'm saying? That was her classification. And so up until that point, they never, ever imagined that she might become somebody's wife, that she would be accepted in some family. And so here now, Boaz says, you're going to have to take her in because she's married into our family. You have to accept her. I'm going to make a break and go ahead and give you a step. The only reason, the reason why I can sing and shout and praise God about grace is because God has accepted me like Boaz is trying to encourage those people to accept Ruth into his family. It is brilliant. The gospel is throughout the book of Ruth. It's just kind of hidden to the Jews. I know that. But the acceptance of Ruth was going to be too much for the first kinsman, for the nearer kinsman. You'll see in a moment. So, this Gentile, to marry this Gentile woman, this Moabite woman, she would have normally been an anti-Semite, and she has no child, her husband has no heir, and Moses' law requires that whoever steps in to redeem that family has to marry this Moabite girl. Now, verse 6, all of a sudden there's a change of heart, okay? There's a, what's the clause called when you change your mind? They give you 14 days. You know, if you switch electric companies, they call it a cooling off period. Well, look how quickly this deal cools off. Verse 6, and the kinsman said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I mar my own inheritance. And then he says, redeem thou my right to thyself. Take the right of redemption to yourself, for I cannot redeem it. So he changes his mind. He's basically saying, I'm unable to. And he's quite emphatic about it. He says, there's no way that I can marry Ruth. I could take care of Naomi. I can take care of the debt. I can do everything else, but Ruth just ruins it all. She will mar my inheritance. Not just her, but her firstborn son. You see, let me run down the possible reasons why he says he can't do it. Number one, because he's already married. Okay? Normal people don't want more than one wife, okay? So it's possible that he already had a wife and didn't want to add a problem in the home, okay? It would ruin. But he says the word, I don't think that is a very good possibility because he says it would mar my inheritance, not just my home life. So let's go to another possibility. I think it was because he had no heir yet. So let's put this thing in perspective. If the nearer kinsman had a wife, which I think he probably did at that point, but did not have a firstborn son yet, had nobody that he could pass his inheritance on to, if he married Ruth, her firstborn son would inherit everything he has. And it would all go to her son and to her and to her son. And his wife and any children that he would have had with his wife would have been marred, would have been affected. They would have had to have shared a ton of their wealth with this foreign woman and her child. So maybe he had no heir yet. So the son of Ruth would inherit all of this man's wealth, leaving the child of Ruth in charge of his estate above any of his future children. And that was what he was worried about. I think there was one other thing that he was worried about, and that was his reputation. I think he's not even named, all right? Because he's really worried about what will people think. It will mar my image. It will mar my inheritance. I'm on the up and up. I'm a powerful man. And I think he's worried that if he takes this person into his life, it will ruin a spotless record. Like the Pharisee and the Levite passing by the man outside of Jericho who was beat up and had been mugged, and they went over there and went, I can't be bothered. I mean, this man, he may die or whatever. Remember, 2 men passed right on by and wouldn't get involved. It took a Samaritan to get down and get dirty and help that man who was not even a Samaritan, he was a Jew. And so the Pharisees were very quick to always separate themselves from other people that might infect them. And I think that's how this man is feeling. So that's my guess, but I think it is because he has no heir yet. And then verse 7. What we have now is what I've called the loss of a shoe and the win of a lifetime. Look in verse 7. Now this was the manner in former time in Israel concerning redeeming and concerning changing, meaning changing families and the exchanging land. For to confirm all things, okay, a man who would not do his duty plucked off his shoe and gave it to his neighbor, and this was a testimony in Israel. It was a visible humiliation. Therefore, verse 8, watch this. The kinsman said unto Boaz, buy it for thee. So he drew off one of his shoes and gave it to Boaz. But I wanted you to see something here. Go to Deuteronomy. Hold your place here. Go back just a few pages to Deuteronomy chapter 25. Deuteronomy 25 and verse 5. If brethren dwell together, and one of them die, there's Elimelech, and have no child, the wife of the dead shall not marry outside unto a stranger, not a family member. Her husband's brother shall go in unto her, and take her to him to wife, and perform the duty of a husband's brother unto her. Somebody needs to take care of her instead of her being thrown out there again and being poor and a widow and not being taken care of. Verse 6. And it shall be that the firstborn which she beareth shall succeed in the name of his brother which is dead, that his name be not put out of Israel. It won't be the end of his line. And if the man like not to take his brother's wife, again, there's that free will. If he doesn't do it, then let his brother's wife go up to the gate unto the elders and say, my husband's brother refuses to raise up unto his brother a name in Israel, won't honor my dead husband's name. He will not perform the duty of my husband's brother. Then the elders of his city shall call him and speak unto him, and if he stand to it and say, I like not to take her, I won't do it, then shall his brother's wife come unto that brother who won't do it in the presence of the elders, and she's supposed to loose his shoe from off his foot and then spit where? Whoa. Now, I'm amazed. That doesn't happen in Ruth, does it? I don't think Ruth is even nearby. But can you imagine the audacity of Ruth coming up and doing that, although I think everybody expected it? That was the power of the law. They didn't quite say, Ruth, come here and spit at this man who won't take your husband. Why wouldn't Ruth do that? Because she wants to marry Boaz. She doesn't want to make things bad. But let me just keep going here. Will loose his shoe from off his foot, spit in his face, and shall answer and say, so shall it be done unto that man that will not build up his brother's house. Now hold your place there for a moment, because we're going to come to verse 10 as soon as I change my page. This was public humiliation. He was not forced to do the right thing, but he was humiliated by not doing the right thing. And walking away from that situation showed him to be a lesser man as somebody who's less than the one who does stand to responsibility and to do it. Now, this public act of rejection was great. It was sufficient to release this. It was enough to lose your shoe and to be spit at. It was enough to give that near kinsman back, to release the near kinsman from any responsibility towards Ruth. He now is not responsible for Ruth at all. And it released Ruth from her responsibility to the near kinsman. Both were now free to move on. And that near kinsman walked away unable to save Ruth, Naomi and Ruth. He couldn't do the package deal. He could only save Naomi. That's why that law, it's a picture of the law in the Old Testament for the Jews. And the Old Testament law could not save the Gentiles, not unless they became Jews. So anyway, we'll go on. This near kinsman walked away the same as he had come. He was static. That near kinsman could not adapt. Boaz was going to adapt to the need of Ruth. He was going to do what was necessary to save Ruth. And he, this near kinsman, will be known from now on as the man who refused to redeem a Gentile widow. He said, I can't do it. And that's where Deuteronomy 25:10 says this, and his name shall be called in Israel the house of him that has his shoe loosed, or that he lost his shoe. He's been humiliated. And when you compare the Old Testament law and the expectations of the law and the righteousness of the law compared to the Son of God and the grace of God and the mercy of God through the Messiah, the Son of God, when you compare, one is a failure. Now, the law is good, but it cannot save. Amen. And the superior of the two is Jesus, which is in type Boaz. Okay, so, and his refusal gave Boaz both the privilege and the opportunity to do everything needed so that he could marry Ruth. So 4 in verse 9, we'll stop with this verse. Boaz said unto the elders and to all the people, ye are witnesses this day that I have bought all that was Elimelech's and all that was Chilion and Mahlon's of the hand of Naomi. You know what, he didn't use her word, he didn't use her name there, but he's saying, I got the girl too. Go to Matthew chapter 1. Matthew chapter 1, and let's start in verse 4. Show you something really cute. Matthew chapter 1, verse 4. This is the descendants of Abraham. As we go through the descendants of Abraham, verse 4, Aram begat Abinadab, and Abinadab begat Naasson, and Naasson begat Salmon, and Salmon begat, now I know it's Boaz, or however you want to pronounce it, but that's how the Greek pronounced Boaz. And Salmon begat Boaz of who? You know who Rechab is? It's Rahab. That's at the time of the judges. Rahab the harlot. Salmon married Rahab the harlot and begat Boaz, and Boaz begat Obed of who? Ruth. And Obed begat Jesse, and Jesse begat David the king, and David the king begat Solomon, and so on. Do you know who Boaz's mother was? Rahab the harlot. No wonder he had no problem marrying Ruth the Moabite. It is amazing how sometimes the experiences of your life sort of mellow you. And I don't know, I just had that thought. That's just pretty cool. The other kinsman had real big problems with marrying Ruth, but not Boaz. And I just wrote down these thoughts. It's amazing what love will drive a man to do. You see, Ruth was in need of a redeemer, and Boaz acts almost instantly and takes care of all of Naomi's debt and Ruth's debt. And then he's, as I'll say in 2 weeks, he's got that shoe. You know what that shoe is? It's his marriage certificate. It proves I have been given the opportunity, I've been given the privilege to marry this woman. He is going to dance around with that shoe when we come back to this. This is a marvelous picture of the gospel, that the requirements of a law have been put away so that we can come right to God through Jesus Christ. Boaz has done the deal. He has been proven to be the better man. So that's that. We have to stop there. We have to go to prayer. I just want to say, Nita and I are going away.